If you feel stuck, listen to this story. In a quiet forest, nestled at the foot of towering mountains, lived a young deer named Max. With his sleek coat and gentle eyes, Max was a creature of grace, often seen wandering between the tall trees and lush greenery that blanketed the forest floor. Despite his calm surroundings and the rhythm of life around him, Max felt a persistent restlessness within. Each morning, as he wandered to the edge of the clearing, he would pause to gaze upwards at the vast, endless sky. From his usual spot, Max would often see eagles soaring above, their strong wings cutting effortlessly through the wind as they glided over the valley. They drifted with ease, rising higher and higher, only to swoop down in a flash before disappearing over the mountains. To Max, this sight was more than captivating. It was enchanting, even heartbreaking. He watched as they dove and spun, each movement an expression of pure freedom that he longed to understand. Though he appreciated the safety and comfort of his forest, Max could not help but feel confined. His sturdy legs and cautious instincts kept him grounded, always mindful of the predators lurking nearby. Yet deep within, Max wished he could leave all this behind and rise into the sky untethered and unrestricted. How wonderful it must be, he thought, to soar like an eagle, to go wherever the winds may take me without fear. As days turned into weeks, the sight of the eagles above stirred something more profound in Max. What he once admired now became a painful reminder of what he lacked. This longing took root in his heart, growing into a restlessness that colored every corner of his existence. With each passing day, the life he had once accepted began to feel small, bound by limits he had never questioned before. The days in the forest continued as they always had, but Max felt the weight of his longing more and more with each passing moment. No longer was he content simply grazing in the meadows or lying beneath the trees. Even his friends noticed the change, sensing the quiet frustration in Max's gaze as he watched the sky. They would often call him to play or graze together, but Max found it difficult to hide his feelings. The more he watched the eagles, the more the limits of his own life felt impossible to ignore. When he roamed through the familiar paths of the forest, Max's mind would drift to the eagles he had seen. He imagined himself soaring over the mountains, his vision stretching far beyond the trees and into distant lands. How lucky they are, he would think. They are free to go anywhere, while I am stuck down here. Max began to resent the ground beneath his hooves, once a comforting presence, but now a reminder of his confinement. The vast forest that had once given him shelter now seemed like a cage, and even the open meadows felt small under the vastness of the sky he could not reach. Why was I made a deer? He asked himself. Why can't I have wings? He voiced these thoughts to no one but himself, as he knew his friends would not understand. After all, they were happy with the forest, never questioning their place in it. But Max's heart yearned for something more, and his envy grew stronger each day. Soon, he could hardly find joy in the life he had once cherished, and even the simple pleasures of fresh grass or the cool shade of the trees felt hollow. One evening, as he was gazing wistfully at the last traces of sunlight fading beyond the mountains, Max made a silent vow. He would find a way to experience freedom like the eagles, even if he had to leave behind the comforts of the life he knew. The decision filled him with a surge of excitement and purpose, yet a flicker of doubt lingered in his mind. For all he knew, a deer's place was in the forest, bound by the rhythms of the earth, but his longing to escape those bounds now overshadowed everything else. One bright morning, as Max wandered near the edge of the forest, he noticed an eagle perched on a rocky ledge above. Its golden eyes scanned the land with a piercing gaze, calm and powerful, as if nothing could disturb its majesty. The sight was mesmerizing, and Max felt his heart race with a familiar mix of envy and admiration. It seemed as if fate had brought him face to face with the very freedom he yearned for. Unable to contain himself, Max trotted up the slope, his hooves skidding on loose stones as he climbed closer to the eagle. The eagle remained still, watching him with a detached curiosity, as if Max's presence was of little consequence. Max, feeling both humbled and emboldened, took a deep breath before speaking. "I see you flying every day," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "and I wish more than anything to have your freedom. You can go anywhere, do anything, while I'm trapped here on the ground." Max looked at the eagle, hoping for a glimmer of understanding in its eyes. "I would give anything to have wings like yours." The eagle continued to observe him, its expression unreadable, before finally speaking in a voice as steady as the mountains themselves. "Why would you wish to be something you are not?" it asked, tilting its head slightly. "The sky is mine, yes, but the ground and the forest are yours." Max frowned, feeling a pang of frustration. "But what's the point of having all this if I'm not truly free?" he countered. "You don't have to worry about hiding from predators or staying close to the forest. You just fly away." The eagle looked thoughtfully at Max, its eyes glinting with a wisdom Max could not fully grasp. "True freedom isn't found in flight," it said quietly. "It's found in understanding and accepting who you are." Max stared back in confusion. "That's easy for you to say," he muttered, glancing away. "You're an eagle, meant for the sky. I'm just a deer, bound to the ground." The eagle did not argue, but watched him in silence, as if weighing his words. Then, with a powerful leap, it spread its wings and took flight, leaving Max alone on the rocky slope. He watched the eagle disappear into the sky, feeling a mixture of awe and despair. Instead of answering his questions, the encounter had left him with an unsettling feeling, like a puzzle that refused to fit together. Max made his way back to the forest, feeling more trapped than ever. The eagle's words echoed in his mind, filling him with doubt. How could he ever be content when everything in him longed for the freedom he could never attain? As he lay down to rest that night, Max felt as though his heart was carrying a weight as heavy as the mountains themselves. That night, Max lay awake under the canopy of stars, his heart churning with questions and doubt. The eagle's words replayed in his mind like an unsolved riddle. He tried to understand what the eagle had meant about freedom being found within, but it felt as distant and unreachable as the stars above. As much as he tried, Max couldn't shake his longing to escape the limits of his life on the ground. For days, the forest lost its luster. Where Max once found comfort in the shade of the trees and the rustle of the leaves, he now felt only confinement. He began wandering further than usual, pushing past familiar boundaries in search of something he couldn't quite name. Every sight of the sky, every glimpse of an eagle soaring above, reminded him of what he thought he lacked: a life without boundaries. One afternoon, while resting by the edge of a cool stream, Max caught his reflection in the water. As he stared at his own face, he realized just how deeply his envy had taken root. His once bright eyes looked dull, clouded with frustration and resentment. For the first time, Max began to question if his obsession was taking something important from him, something he might never regain. "What has happened to me?" he wondered aloud. "Have I lost the joy in who I am, all because of what I can never be?" This painful realization left Max feeling hollow. His longing for freedom had grown so strong that it overshadowed every other part of his life. But now he wondered if he was missing something right in front of him. Still, he couldn't dismiss his yearning to be like the eagle. He was torn between the life he had and the life he imagined, and the two felt impossible to reconcile. He wandered aimlessly that day, struggling with a question he couldn't yet answer. Deep down, Max began to feel that he was at a crossroads, one path leading back to the life he knew and the other toward a deeper understanding of himself. Yet, he couldn't find the strength to choose either. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the forest, Max realized he was no closer to peace than he had been when he first looked up at the sky. As the last light faded, Max lowered his head, feeling the weight of his struggle pressing down on him. In his heart, he hoped that somehow he would find a way forward, even if he didn't know what it looked like yet. With a heavy sigh, Max closed his eyes, surrendering to the stillness of the night, not knowing that change was closer than he could have imagined. The next morning, as dawn painted the sky in soft pinks and golds, Max felt the weight of his unanswered questions heavier than ever. Resigned to another day of searching, he made his way to a quiet lake at the edge of the forest. Its surface was like glass, reflecting the world around it with serene clarity. As Max bent down to drink, he saw his own face mirrored alongside the morning sky, a blend of earth and sky that seemed to echo his inner conflict. Just then, a shadow passed over him, and he looked up to see the same eagle he had spoken with days before, gliding gracefully down to land by the water. Max's heart leapt with surprise, and perhaps a glimmer of hope. The eagle settled beside him, folding its great wings as it studied him with those piercing golden eyes. The eagle spoke first, its voice calm and measured. "You still carry the burden of wanting to be something you're not," it observed. Max nodded, unable to mask his feelings. "I don't understand," he admitted. "You told me that freedom is found within. But how can I be free when I'm bound to the ground, while you can soar to places I'll never reach?" The eagle considered his words in silence before responding. "You see only the surface of my life, Max. Yes, I can fly high and far, but even my life has its limits." It gestured with one wing toward the sky. "I am bound to the wind and the hunt, to places where I must search for food and survive the storms. Freedom is not about having no limits, it's about understanding your own path and embracing it fully." Max stared at the eagle, taken aback by this new perspective. "But how can I find freedom on the ground?" he asked, desperation seeping into his voice. The eagle tilted its head, its gaze softening. "The forest and the ground are your wings, Max. You know this place in a way I never will. You can run through the meadows, feel the earth beneath you, taste the dew on the grass, and find shelter under the trees. My freedom lies in the sky, but yours is here, among the leaves and shadows." For a moment, Max was silent, trying to let the eagle's words settle into his heart. It was as though he were hearing about his own life for the first time. Could it be true? Had he been so fixated on what he lacked that he'd missed the beauty of the world that was already his? The eagle watched him, as though sensing his hesitation. "The first step to finding peace, Max, is to stop comparing your life to others. The second is to see your life with fresh eyes." Max's heart stirred with a newfound awareness. "So, freedom isn't about being able to go everywhere?" he ventured slowly. The eagle gave a slight nod. "Freedom is living fully in the place you are meant to be." With that, it spread its wings, lifting effortlessly into the air, leaving Max alone by the lake once again. But this time, he didn't feel abandoned. Instead, he felt something opening within him, like a door he hadn't realized was there. After the eagle's words settled in his heart, Max returned to the forest, this time with a different feeling guiding his steps. He tried to see his surroundings with new eyes, as the eagle had encouraged him to do. For the first time, he noticed the softness of the grass beneath his hooves and the way sunlight filtered through the canopy above, casting playful patterns on the ground. The forest felt alive, welcoming him back into its embrace, and he realized he had never truly looked at it this way before. Over the following days, Max explored the forest with renewed purpose. He began to notice the unique ways his body was built for his world. His strong legs could carry him swiftly across the meadows and through the densest parts of the forest, where other animals would struggle. He could leap over fallen logs, sprint through narrow pathways, and listen to the faintest sounds that warned him of danger. These were his gifts, abilities that allowed him to move with a freedom that was entirely his own. One afternoon, as he rested by a sunlit clearing, Max watched a family of rabbits darting in and out of their burrows, each movement quick and precise. He marveled at how they seemed perfectly content in their small world, finding joy in the simple tasks of gathering food and playing among themselves. They never looked to the sky in envy or wished for wings to carry them away. They were at peace, perfectly in tune with their surroundings. Max smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. He was beginning to understand the wisdom the eagle had shared. Freedom, he realized, was not about escaping his life to live someone else's. It was about finding the wonder in his own existence. With this new insight, he began to let go of his yearning for flight and instead embrace the quiet beauty of his own path. As days turned into weeks, Max discovered joys in the forest he had once taken for granted. He learned the different calls of the birds, the scent of fresh rain on leaves, and the way the forest hummed with life at dusk. The envy that had once weighed down his heart started to dissolve, replaced by a deep sense of belonging. One evening, as he watched the sky blush with the colors of sunset, he felt no ache, no longing to follow the eagles into the horizon. Instead, he felt a quiet satisfaction, a fullness he had never known. He was exactly where he needed to be, and for the first time, that felt like enough. As Max settled into his new outlook, he felt a peace that was as deep and steady as the roots of the trees around him. No longer did he look to the sky with envy. Instead, he found joy in the life unfolding within his reach. Each day held a quiet wonder, from the soft rustling of leaves in the morning breeze to the gentle glow of fireflies at dusk. For the first time, Max understood that he was truly free. Free to live fully in the world he was a part of, appreciating the gifts unique to him. One evening, as he wandered to the forest's edge, Max noticed a young fawn nearby, gazing up at an eagle soaring in the twilight sky. The fawn's eyes were wide with awe, and Max saw himself reflected in its innocent gaze. With a gentle smile, he stepped forward and lowered his head to the young deer's level. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said softly, nodding toward the eagle that dipped and rose against the backdrop of a darkening sky. The fawn looked at him and nodded eagerly. "Yes, I wish I could fly like that," it whispered, a touch of longing in its voice. Max chuckled gently. "I used to think that way too," he admitted, "but I've learned that we all have our own kind of freedom, even if it doesn't look like what others have." He gestured to the trees and meadows around them. "The forest is our sky. We can run, leap, and live freely here in ways that belong only to us." The fawn looked around, as though seeing the forest for the first time, and Max felt a deep satisfaction knowing that he could help another find peace with who they were. He didn't need to be anything other than himself to experience the world's beauty, and he was grateful to share that wisdom. As the night settled over the forest, Max lay beneath the stars, feeling a quiet contentment he hadn't known before. The forest, once a place he had wanted to escape, was now his sanctuary, full of endless paths and discoveries waiting for him. Each rustling leaf, each flicker of starlight, was a reminder that he was part of something vast and beautiful, just as he was. Max closed his eyes with a peaceful smile, understanding that the true meaning of freedom was found not in escaping his life, but in embracing it. He had everything he needed to live fully and joyfully, right where he was. Moral of the story: true freedom comes from embracing who we are, not from yearning to be something we're not. The path to happiness lies not in comparison, but in recognizing and cherishing our own unique place in the world. Thank you for following Max's journey. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who might need a reminder to find freedom in their own life path. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of wisdom and reflection. Until next time.